Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. This is an unusual video. It's one I haven't done for a very long time. The reason being, you see bits of this on and off in other videos, but I haven't done it as a single video for a long time. We're going to have a look at the kit and the way the orchids are actually arranged and why. There's always a why with me, not just a do as I say. Well, I do that sometimes. Right, I'm going to shut the door behind me, so I'm going to keep the humidity and everything okay. I'm going to leave the fan on because we're looking at the orchid grow room as it is during the day. Now the sun has just come across onto the roof. We are at our longest amount of daylight for a while, which means the sun comes up to this halfway point. As that amount of daylight shortens, that shadow will gradually move down, slowly but surely, until it disappears off the edge. And we won't see any more sun on the grow room until next summer. And that removes all of my additional heat. At the moment, the heat I'm getting, I don't want. It's too much. But you have to put up with what you're given. Right, so circulating fan, that is on a thermostat, but the thermostat is set to 40, which obviously we are never going to achieve in here. If we do, the plants will be dead. But what that does is it means the fan is permanently on, and so is the heater, but the heater's manually turned off. Yeah, so I've now got a fan with manual control. It's permanently on as far as the thermostat is concerned, but I can do that, which I do late in the evening before I go to bed, and then I turn it back on breakfast time. Yeah, and then as the heat rises in here, that currently says 27, that over there says 23. It's about time they got their act together. This, however, is the true temperature, and that says 24. So this reads a bit low, and that reads a bit high, and it's always somewhere in between. As it starts to rise because the sun's round, we press the top button, and we put the thing on full blast. Yeah? And that's maximum air circulation. That's as much as I can do with the kit I've got. But as I'm talking, we'll knock it back down onto its minimum. This is a dehumidifier. That comes into its own in the winter. After I've done a watering run in the winter, which are not that frequent, there's obviously a fair bit of humidity gets in here, and I've got no temperature. Humidity with no temperature, cold, is not good. So I use a dehumidifier to take the humidity down, otherwise we start getting mould and possibly some rot. Yeah, we don't need that amount of humidity when the temperatures are really low. So the dehumidifier only gets used in the winter. However, the humidifier, which is a little home humidifier, I do have a humidistat which I could connect that to, but basically I'm here nearly all the time, so I keep my eye on this, and this is relatively accurate. That currently says we're at 84%, and as I've said, we're at 24 degrees. That's fine. However, in a minute we're going to be up to 28, possibly even 29 degrees, and 84% will not be enough. And as that temperature rises, that relative humidity is going to drop anyway, at which point we fire this up. Now that's got RO water in it because the steam mist, whatever you want to call it, that comes out lands on the plants. And if it was tap water, which my tap water's got a TDS of nearly 400, there's a hell of a lot of calcium in it, that would get deposited wherever that mist landed, including on some of the plants. So I use RO water, yeah, so it's pure water in there, and that gets blasted around the whole grow room with the circulating fan. As it goes over there, it blasts it up that end of the thing, and then as the circulating fan comes round here, it starts sucking it across here and pushing it into other parts. So that comes on manually when I need it. Eventually, when that sun disappears and it's no longer hitting the roof, that won't get used till next year. There'll be enough ambient humidity. Right, so that's the kit. That's it. It's not a lot. As I said, there's a couple of measuring devices, gauges and stuff, you know, this little gadget here. These are about £6 on eBay. They're relatively accurate. They're not perfect by any means. I mean, that temperature is 1 degree out. That's not bad. The humidifier, humidistat within it is not bad. It's probably within 3%, something like that. That's more than good enough for what I want. Right, shelving and why. That's a rack of mounts that don't need the brightest light. However, it's still quite bright. It is up towards the roof, but it's this side of that shadow, so it never gets that really bright light. This top shelf is in maximum light, but not the brightest, because again, it's not within that shadow. The shelf below has got a PAF and my Sarcochilas on it. The shelf below that is starting to get, the lower down we get, the more shade we're looking at, yeah? And down here we've got Paphiopedilums and Masdevallias. And then my little Restrepias, recently mounted those 3, and the other one, they hang down there. They're quite shaded down there. And then over there we've got a shelf that at the far end gets the brightest light, but it's not a high shelf, so it doesn't get the heat. Up near that roof, up there in that corner, that's hot up there, because you've got radiated heat coming through that roof. But with the circulating fan, it gets dispersed. So these are not overheating, but they do get bright light halfway along that shelf, and then they're in the shadow. Down there, more shadier stuff. There's a zygo species and another zygo. There's a whole area down there with not much on it. That doesn't mean I'm going out buying a load of stuff. Now, the movable shelving is basically for my Cymbidiums. It was built to cater for them being outside on wheels so that I could push them into some sunshine late in the afternoon, but keep them out of midday sun. That's what it was built for, but they only went out for 1 year, came back in with scale, slugs and snails and woodlice, and I thought, yeah, you're not going out anymore, and so they don't. But nonetheless, it's still the shaving for my Cymbidiums. Red Admiral outside. The butterflies are getting around again now. It's funny how July and they all seem to fire up again. So this is where the Cymbidiums live. The ones that are up this end that get the brighter light is purely by chance. They're not special. These don't need higher light than these. There's just not enough room for them all up the bright end. These are obviously in a shadier position. I can only get so many on the top shelf. That's just how it is. It's not desirable. Right, up in this corner we've got a rack of mounts, some of which get bright light, and that top row get bright light. That's Jenkinsii, Lindleyi, and that is actually a Prosthetia. That's, I think, is it on the label? Yeah, it would be if it hadn't faded. That's what happens in the bright light. I think it's Garciana. That's coming on quite nicely. It's growing okay. And then we have 2 Dendrobiums that don't need the brightest light. Yeah, and that's my new Mr. Hairy, Dendrobium senile, Dendrobium trigonopus. And then over there is my Dendrobium aphyllum, which is a miserable failure, but it is making an attempt to come into growth. We've got 3 new growths there, so I haven't thrown it out yet. Don't push your luck. And then over there, this is a relatively new plant. This is Cassiope, and it's a cross between, come on brain, what is it? It's a cross between Nobile and Moniliform. and for some strange reason neither of those two plants are that vigorous, but this is a monster. And I'm expecting it to be a monster. It's already got 5 new growths pushing on and a mass of new roots, plus its existing canes which are still growing. That's going to be a good one. I had one a long time ago, and it grew so big I had to give it away. This thing here, almost bare rooted, and this plays very silly games, because if you look at that new growth, just below it is what it looked like before it became a new growth. It looks like a juvenile cane, and then suddenly it starts growing. So I think that's a new growth as well. So it's got 2. It did have one over here, but it failed. But again, reasonably strong plant. What is it? It's a little bit. It'll say on the other side of that label if I can get it to turn over. It is it's JK. Oh, I can't read it. Come on, it's too close. Sooth. JK being Jarak, whatever, nursery type. And then this last one here is a nice set of buds on here that's going to bloom soon. So that's the rest of the mounts. There are some others. There's my air plants here that get some water thrown on them now and again when I think about it. Then we've got Insa's organised Dendrobium hercoglossum to replace my failed plant. Never recovered from moving house, whereas this is going mad. We have masses of new growths and masses of new roots, and the new roots are getting right down into the moss. Yeah, so that is coming on in leaps and bounds. There's another mount up here. This is my Victoria Regina. New growths up here with new roots, little new growth here. These 2 canes have finished growing, and yeah, it's not a happy plant, but it's at least trying now, so we're okay there. Right, the Sarracenias live up here. Bright light, they get reflected light from the bright bit coming in the top. This is the brightest light they can get in here, and the trouble is they're doing too well. You get this one over here is doing so well. Look at this. That's never going to stand upright. It just flops. Whereas the shorter ones tend to produce some decent pictures. Again, over here. But they're just growing incredibly well, and they're becoming difficult to keep hydrated. These trays have to be topped up every single day, and it's only just enough for them. Again, it's they could do with being outside. If they were outside in the sun, they would colour up. But in here, they're probably going to stay shades of green with tinges. Whereas if they got outside and got some sun on them, first of all, they wouldn't grow so spindly. They'd actually grow better and more stunted and stockier and stronger, but they would colour up dramatically. Right, over here then, this is a brightish shelf. This end is just catching the brightest light. Brassia. Forgotten what this is, it's new. Ionopsis, some kikis, and the tail end of the nobiles at the back there. And apart from that, this is my display shelf because I can see it from my comfy seat when I'm working on my laptop. So this is where things in bud and bloom end up, so that they're together. As I say, there's nobiles along the back. There's a couple of other things. There's a Zygonicea in here. There's a Prosthetia radiata up in here that's got some buds coming. Some black hair type dendrobiums. Well, in fact, both of my black hair dendrobiums, Brassia type. Down on this shelf are some Oncidium odontoglossum types. Yeah? And they live in a shadier position. They're lower down, so they're quite shady down there. Then top shelf over here, we got Coelogenes. This is my highest shelf. This literally is the shelf that takes things up closest to the roof. And these are away from the brightest light. You see the shadow again. So they're in good light, but they're not in the brightest light. They would probably burn. Yeah. So cotyledons, the rest of them are on this shelf. Now this is relative to this shelf, this is a bit more shady. It's not by choice, it's just there's only so much room in this place, and I wanted the cotyledons self-contained on their own shelving. I didn't want them dotted around. The Miltoniopsis live here, and that is quite a shady shelf because although it's relatively high up, it's directly underneath a jungle, so there's very little light gets down through there. Then there's a gap with a shelf missing, and all my Pleonies are on that lower shelf. They don't need incredibly bright light, not in their growing season. They're woodland plants, so in their growing season there would be leaf cover. Yeah, so I've always assumed they grow in deciduous woodland. I don't know that, not for definite. I've always just assumed. But if they grow in deciduous woodland, then obviously it's in full leaf during their growing season. Now on the floor we have assorted dirty pots. I'm not one of those that cleans pots all the time. I clean a pot when I need it, and that's how I work. I look for, you know, if I'm doing repotting, you've seen me, I usually say, right, I'm going to take a break, have a clear up, sort out what pots I need. At that point I search through the dirty pots, take them into the kitchen, give them a good clean, bring them back in here, clean and dry, ready to use. Now here we have Masdevallias, quite a shady shelf. If I want these to bloom, I would suggest that shelf is too shady. But what we might do is we have spare ground over here. That half shelf there has got nothing on it. That is a lot brighter than that. I think I might move them and actually transfer them up there. So they're lengthways at the moment to fit on that shelf, but if they twist round the other way through 90 degrees, they will still both fit on that shelf. They'll get a lot more light, and I think we might be more inclined to see some blooms. So I think I might do that. The other stuff that's on the floor, that at the back is an air cleaner. It's got a filter unit in it, it's got a UV unit in it to kill bugs and microbes and stuff. I don't use it anymore. The idea was to help reduce the mould and things. At one point I was getting quite a lot of mould on the plants. There is mould in here, you can see it on the plastic and you can see it on the shelving. It's in here, doesn't tend to affect the plants that much, if at all. So I don't worry about it. I only worry about things when they become a problem. Right, and that's my large sprayer there, which doesn't get used in here. It gets used out in the garden basically, but I keep it in here. So that's the way this all works. That's how it fits together and why. Some things are on shelves because there isn't anywhere else for them to go, like the Cymbidiums. Some things are on selected shelves because it's suited to their needs. That's ideal. Some are not necessarily in the best place. And having just talked it through, instead of ignoring it, we'll do something about it and we'll move them. And as I said, they can come over there. So that's good. There's butterflies whizzing around the garden, something wicked at the moment. It'd be nice to catch some of them on film, but when it's sunny like this and warm, they're a bit quick. They seem to fire up more in the sunshine. Anyway, at least they're around now. You know, I enjoy their company when they're around. So anyway, so that's how this place is set up and the logic behind it. Somebody actually asked me the size of this place because they were looking at moving house and wanted to possibly get something similar. This place always looks longer than it is wide. It's not. It's actually just over 3 meters by 3 meters, and at the tallest point it's 2.2. Yeah, so probably 2 meters at the apex there, and then 2.2 up into the peak up there. But yeah, it's effectively 3 by 3. It's going to be 10 by 10 in old money. Yeah, 10 feet by 10 feet. And it's a good size. It means I've got a good thoroughfare to get out and back in again and all that sort of stuff. I've got room for moving around here. And I've got various bits of junk down here, stakes, a few chemicals, lots of spare drip trays, some tools, TDS and pH meters, stuff like that. So yeah, that's how it all works. It evolved, and when I first moved round here, the basic layout was as it is now, basically, but it has changed since then. So yeah, and I still have plans to move the whole thing round. They may never happen because they were an idea that I thought I might like, and the main reason is my workbench. When I'm working on it, I'm staring at a brick wall. The idea was to move that into this corner so that when I'm working on my workbench, I'm looking at the garden, my planted border, and watching the butterflies and the bees and the birds. Far more interesting. And that would have meant that would have to move over the other side. These two shelves would slide up into the corner. So it would have meant moving a lot of stuff around. But if that wasn't there and that wasn't there, there'd be plenty of room to move stuff from over here into where they were, you know. So it would have worked. But in doing so, the idea was to give the place a good clean. And at the moment, I'm not up to it. I don't want to do it. I'm hoping that one day, possibly in the autumn, when we don't get the sun on the roof, and we get perhaps a weekend when Hannah's down and it's wet and we can't do anything in the garden, then perhaps between the two of us we could shift the stuff around and give this place a good clean at the same time. It hasn't been done for a while now. Used to do it every year, but that was when I used to get a visitor coming round to check that I was looking after the place. They don't come anymore, so we let the place go to pot. It all wipes off. It's not doing any harm. It just wipes off with a damp cloth. And if the liquid that the damp cloth is dipped in has got a bit of bleach or something in it, then it stops it coming back for quite a long time. It's just the effort involved. So we shall see. Maybe that will get done. So as I said, an odd video, not really orchids, but it is. It's orchid related, but it's more about what goes on in here and why things are where they are and how it's evolved from when I first moved round here. And I'm reasonably happy with the way it works at the moment. I could just do without quite so much heat coming in from the roof. The bright light I don't mind, it's the heat that it generates is a bit pushing it a bit. Yeah, if you look out there on the buddleia at the moment, there's a peacock butterfly on the end there. I doubt if I can zoom in on that through the glass. Let's have a go. There we go, peacock butterfly. Probably a bit blurry, but I can't see what the hell I'm doing. I'm just pointing. Anyway, I shall leave it at that, and I will see you next time. Thanks for dropping by.